Hello everyone, welcome back to a Building Toronto video. Today I'm going to be sort of showcasing a little bit of the behind the scenes work of the Building Toronto sort of series and project in general, rather than sort of have some preset video content in the background. What I'm going to be doing today is sort of just showing you guys what it's like for me, just sort of building pretty much every building that's in the project, and so it's not as sort of quick and as sort of straightforward as it appears in many of the videos that I do. And I do that deliberately. I want it to be sort of exciting and fast paced, and I want you guys to sort of just see the content and the work that's been done. I don't want you to sort of watch us build the building. But that being said, when I do the speed builds, I think I try and focus on having speed build episodes that are for builds that can be built quickly. I sort of have builds that are catered towards the speed build type of thing. And so because of that, you don't really see the amount of background work that goes into a lot of the builds in Toronto, specifically the builds that are of the more historic type, the sort of time that it takes to build those. So today in the background, what you see is the original Bank of Nova Scotia at Bay and King. This is now part of Scotia Plaza, but it's not actual Scotia Plaza. Scotia Plaza is the tall building. So this building was constructed between 1949 and 1951. It's located at 44 King Street West, and there's not really too much to talk about history-wise. A couple interesting facts about it while you sort of watch me just slowly build the building. The original architect died before the building was complete because the building was delayed by 20 years. Additionally, the building was designated a historic site in 1975, and that's pretty much it. That's all that there really is history-wise. It's a pretty cool building. It's 27 stories when it was completed in 1951, and like I said, it was the Bank of Nova Scotia then, and it's still owned by the Bank of Nova Scotia now. But the point of the video, like I said, was to sort of demonstrate the amount of work that goes into the background. And so this is a little bit of an interesting video as well, because this is a building we were forced to redo. And the reason I chose to sort of do this to video, because this is a video I've wanted to do for a while, but I didn't really know how to sort of what content to put in the background of the commentary. And I thought this was a good video because it demonstrates a couple of things. One, it demonstrates obviously the amount of sort of not legwork, but the amount of background work that's required to put together a build that looks pretty basic once it's finished. But additionally, it also sort of demonstrates that mistakes happen. And so this build was originally finished a while ago. You can probably see it in the background as I fly around. And it was completed, so we thought. However, upon further review, we realized that the building wasn't long enough. And so it was actually almost half of what it should have been. So it wasn't something we could quickly repair. It was something we had to basically completely start over. It was supposed to be 82 blocks long up Bay Street, and instead it was 40 something. And so this sort of left us in an unfortunate position where we had to redo most of the building. That being said, this building also takes longer than a lot of the modern buildings because a lot of the modern buildings are sort of just straight glass. Something like One King took me very little time. It took me probably 4 or 5 hours in total, simply because all I had to do was do the first 6 or 7 floors, and then I could just copy it almost all the way up the building. So even though it's way taller and has a bigger impact on the actual city, it's really the small buildings that are a lot more difficult for us to build and a lot more difficult for us to put together. That being said, one of the things that I really wanted to focus on this project, and something that makes it unique, is the sort of detail work that is in the build and the accuracy of that detail. I had always said that if the buildings weren't accurate, then the project was really no different than anybody else who was just building any Minecraft city generically in their world. Because if the details weren't as spot on as they could possibly be in the game, and we were deliberately taking shortcuts to try and get farther and progress quicker, then we were sort of straying from the original goal of the project, which is what was to make Minecraft on a one-to-one city scale. Obviously, there are some things that need to be taken into consideration that we just can't do, but I think that so far we've been pretty true to the builds in Toronto as best we could, and we want to keep doing that going forward. And obviously, as a result, we had to redo some things. So like I said, this is a build that doesn't seem like how much work goes into it, to be completely honest. It's a pretty flat build. It's all one type of block. It's all sandstone, just different variations of the sandstone. And it's not that tall either. It's only 24 stories. But when you look at the amount of work that has to go into all the little details, all the little intricacies of the building, to make sure it ties well into the Scotia Plaza and to make sure that it ties well into the building next door as well. Obviously, it's a little bit more than meets the eye. And so the kind of thing that I've struggled with throughout the project is how to make those little details more noticeable to the viewer, because I don't want to stress little things that shouldn't be focused on, but I also don't want the only people to notice these little details being me, because then I'm almost building for myself in a way. Also, there's other builders who work on the project, and I want to make sure all of the builders on the project understand the value of these little intricacies. And one of the easiest ways to have them understand the value is if the viewers of the project also understand the value. And so I thought that this was a good video to sort of demonstrate how much work goes into sort of copying another build, because it seems like it would be quicker. It seems like you have your building designs already for you. So what do you even need to think about when you're building? You can just sort of look at the picture and copy it all the way up. However, it sometimes is more difficult because you're in cases where the build actually would look better if you strayed from the original design a little bit and added some details and intricacies that you can't add because they aren't there. Especially in Minecraft, where there's that sort of flat look, especially with the sandstone buildings, you get that very flat look sometimes, and you want to add some detail. You want to add some detail work to the build, some definition, and you can't. And part of that is what makes this project special, is that the buildings may not be as detailed as you would want them to be, but that's how the city is. The city, what makes a city beautiful, what makes the city of Toronto great, isn't necessarily every little detail, but it's how all the different buildings come together. You have some buildings that don't seem as detailed, like, for example, this one where there's a lot of flat sort of sandstone, but when you look at the flat sandstone with the minimal detail that there is, and you contrast that to the bronze color of Scotia Plaza, and then you look to the southeast and there's the Commerce Court, which is a sandstone building that's much more detailed, you sort of get a contrast of different buildings. It looks like there's different buildings, there's different stories behind each one, and that's something that makes the city of Toronto and ultimately this project really unique and really special, is that you end up with multiple different sort of stories and multiple different different sort of types of buildings that really brings everything together and makes it look like it's not just one big complex, right? Because when you are downtown now, especially, almost every block is completely interconnected. And so if everything was the same style, if everything was the exact same level of detailing and from the same era, it would look just like one simple building on each block. And obviously that's not the case. And so this was something that I wanted to make sure we captured as best as we could on this project. And ultimately, looking at this build here at Bay and King, it's a build that I struggled with personally because I want it to be a lot more detailed. When you see it in person, you don't realize how undetailed it is. It's a building that I walked by almost every day going to school, and you don't realize that there isn't really that much detail on it, simply because compared to the other buildings around it on those two blocks, directly to the west is First Canadian Place, which is all glass, and to the east of it and to the north to an extent is Scotia Plaza, which is more modern as well. And so because of that, the sandstone, even the flat lack of detail with the sandstone, I believe it's called Art Deco style, has its own sort of, creates its own style in a way where that just because it's not necessarily detailed doesn't mean it isn't different and doesn't mean it doesn't stand out. And so it's sort of this sort of interesting contrast that we have to deal with when we're building the city, is that there's really times where you want to do more and you can't. And so this was a good example of that. And that being said, sometimes the less detailed buildings are the harder ones to build, because you want to make sure you do get the details as perfect as possible because there's so few of them. But that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. A little bit of a different video, like I said. Let me know what you guys think of this kind of style, where I just sort of talk about what we were thinking about while we were building, or I talk about my sort of opinions on the city or anything like that. I'm hoping to finish this building soon and move on to the ones to the north of it. Adelaide Hotel will be hopefully a speed build. That's a build that I think is pretty accessible to a speed build episode. It's pretty basic, so I should be able to get all of it done in a hopefully shorter amount of time. So that being said, hopefully there will be a speed build episode in the coming weeks. But yeah, let me know what you think about this kind of video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button as well. And share the channel with some of your friends to help us keep growing. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. Hope you guys have a good day. My name is Gamefruitpulp, and I will catch you all later. Have a good one.